Why location matters. London as a gold hub. London plays a unique and central role in the global gold market. It is the largest over-the-counter gold trading hub in the world and the most common custody location for central bank gold. A key reason for this is liquidity. Gold stored in London can be traded, swapped, or pledged very quickly, often without physically moving the metal. The Bank of England's vaulting system and the broader London market infrastructure allow central banks to access global markets efficiently, especially during periods of stress. Monthly reporting of custody totals also contributes to transparency while still preserving operational flexibility. In global reserve management, liquidity truly lives in location. New York's strategic vaults. New York is home to the largest known depository of monetary gold in the world. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York stores gold on behalf of foreign governments and international institutions under a strong and well-established custody framework. What makes New York strategically important is not only security, but also connectivity. Gold held there is deeply integrated into global financial markets, allowing reserve managers to combine physical safety with operational usability. Trust flows through infrastructure, and New York represents one of its strongest pillars. Domestic storage advantages. Storing gold at home provides political sovereignty, legal clarity, and public confidence. During crises, domestic control can be decisive. When combined with holdings in London or New York, domestic storage completes a balanced and resilient reserve strategy. Silence as strategy. 2022-2026, record central bank buying. Since 2022, central banks have returned to the gold market at a historic scale. Annual purchases exceeded 1,000 tons for several consecutive years, marking one of the strongest periods of official sector demand in modern history. What makes this especially important is who is buying. These purchases are driven by central banks, institutions whose primary mandate is stability, not profit. This signals a long-term shift rather than a temporary response to market conditions. Gold did not return loudly or suddenly. Instead, it re-entered reserve strategies quietly but decisively, reaffirming its role as a core asset in times of uncertainty. Drivers behind the silence. Central banks deliberately avoid drawing attention to their gold purchases. Several factors explain this behavior. Sanctions risk and de-dollarization concerns encourage discretion, while large public purchases could push prices higher against the buyers themselves. In addition, gold functions as insurance, and insurance works best when it is accumulated calmly rather than under pressure. Silence, therefore, is not accidental. It is a strategic choice designed to protect both market stability and national interests. Logistics and liquidity gold markets remain deeply physical. Large cross-border flows, temporary bottlenecks, and increased leasing demand can all affect liquidity. Even in a digital financial system, metal still has to move. Vaults, logistics, and timing continue to shape prices and availability. Repatriation and legal lessons. Germany and the Netherlands both chose to repatriate significant portions of their gold reserves, and these decisions carried both practical and symbolic importance. By returning gold home, these countries reinforced national sovereignty and strengthened public trust in reserve management. In Germany's case, repatriation followed years of public debate about transparency and control. For the Netherlands, bringing gold back served as a reminder that reserves ultimately belong to the nation, not to foreign institutions. In both cases, repatriation reduced dependence on foreign jurisdictions and clarified legal ownership and access. India's strategic move. India repatriated more than 100 tons of gold from abroad to domestic vaults, significantly expanding local storage capacity. Beyond logistics, this move had strong symbolic meaning. It emphasized reserve independence and reinforced confidence in India's financial system. By holding more gold at home, India reduced external legal risk while signaling long-term commitment to sovereign control over reserves. The decision also aligned with broader efforts to strengthen domestic financial credibility. Venezuela's warning. Venezuela's experience provides a sobering counterexample. Gold held abroad became inaccessible due to legal disputes over political recognition. Despite formal ownership, courts blocked access. The lesson is clear. Ownership alone is not enough. Jurisdiction can override possession, and location can determine control. Who holds the most? Beyond rankings. Top global holders. When global gold reserves are ranked by total tonnage, the same names often appear at the top. The United States and Germany lead by a wide margin, followed by major institutional and sovereign holders such as the IMF, Italy, and France. China has been steadily rising through consistent accumulation over recent years. These rankings frequently dominate headlines and are often treated as definitive measures of financial strength. However, while tonnage is an important starting point, it only tells part of the story about how gold functions within reserve systems. What numbers don't show? Raw tonnage figures do not capture several critical dimensions of reserve strength. Storage location matters because gold held abroad may be subject to legal or political constraints. Transparency levels also differ widely, affecting public trust and market confidence. Operational usability is equally important. Gold that cannot be accessed, pledged, or mobilized quickly may lose much of its strategic value during a crisis. Legal access, not just ownership, ultimately determines whether gold can fulfill its role as a reserve asset. Two different models. Germany emphasizes openness and detailed disclosure, building trust through transparency. China emphasizes discretion and steady accumulation, building credibility through action rather than communication. Both approaches influence markets, demonstrating that there is more than one path to credibility in modern reserve management. Key takeaways and final thought. What this means for businesses. Strong national gold reserves have important implications for the private sector. When a country holds substantial and well-managed reserves, it reduces perceived risk during periods of economic or geopolitical stress. This, in turn, can lower financing costs and improve access to credit, especially during crises. Legal clarity and reserve strength also support international trade by reassuring partners and lenders. For businesses, particularly exporters, confidence in national reserves contributes indirectly to stability, investment, and long-term planning. Gold, in this sense, strengthens economic resilience beyond the public sector. What this means for states and savers. For states, modern reserve strategy is no longer just about maximizing returns, it is about balancing sovereignty and liquidity. Control over reserves matters just as much as access to global markets. For individual savers, central bank behavior sends a clear signal. When institutions responsible for long-term stability increase gold exposure, they demonstrate a preference for independence, resilience, and protection against uncertainty. Gold reflects a world where risk cannot always be priced, only prepared for. Final perspective from the vaults. Gold is not a museum artifact or a nostalgic relic. It is active financial infrastructure. Vaults around the world shape global calm during periods of instability. Silence in many cases is strategic rather than accidental. In an uncertain world, gold remains the quiet foundation of power, trust, and confidence.